This video is about why I like to put 3 to 5% down on homes that I purchase, why I think it's an amazing opportunity for people to get into home ownership, and why there's kind of a controversy around this in the personal finance community. I go against the grain here. Almost everyone you talk to will say put 20% down on a house, but I just don't think that's realistic for a lot of people in middle class America, people who are struggling, and I've been there. I haven't always had a stable income. I haven't always done well. I haven't always been successful in life. And so this is kind of the realistic side of the advantages and the risks and disadvantages of putting 3 to 5% down on a house. So the first thing to really think about here is this gives access to people to buy homes. I'll use the example of the city that I live in. The median home price is about $120,000. Let's say if you find a home that's slightly below that, it's a starter home for you. Average home in the US gets sold every 5 years, so most people don't really even spend that much time in the homes that they buy. So you have to think about that. How can you get into what's called the property ladder, leverage properties? How can you get into the property ladder, use the equity that you build up to help you build wealth? And how can you then go on to sell a property to make a profit and then move up into, say, a larger home for your family or something like that? So let's just do some simple math here. Let's say you find a $100,000 home in the Midwest. You want to put 5% down on it. It's only $5,000. And when I talk to real estate agents, they say that 9 out of 10 offers, the buyers ask the sellers to cover closing costs. So yeah, you have to get an inspection. You're going to have to pay for a few things here and there, but mostly your cost is going to be that 5% down payment. So you can buy a house in the Midwest for about $5,000. Okay, break that down. How long is it going to take you to save that much? Not too long, right? Really, if you budget carefully, if you really take a look at your expenses and you save up and you make a plan, maybe in 3 to 5 years, and I'm talking about, people who are really struggling to get by, you need to develop a plan. If you're saving $100, $200 a month, in a few years, you're going to be able to have that $5,000 down payment. You're going to be able to have a house and live that dream. Another thing to mention here though is you want to have cash reserves when you buy a house. You're going to have to make repairs. What happens if your dishwasher breaks? Or what happens if your washer dryer go out? Or what do you have to replace your hot water heater? I think you need at least another $5,000 to $10,000 sitting in a checking or savings account that you can access when you buy a home, or you're going to put yourself into debt. You're going to be in a bad position there. So that's just a side note and something to think about. I'm not telling people to rush out and buy a house, put 3% down without really thinking through it. The other thing you have to know is that if you put 3 to 5% down, and you can get either an FHA, a government subsidized loan, and put a low amount down, or you can get a conventional mortgage, 30-year conventional, and put 3 to 5% down. Different lenders, different banks will have different options for you, and you can talk that out with a lender or a banking mortgage specialist at a bank or a lender. But you're going to have to pay mortgage insurance, and that's going to vary with the loan amount. The rule that I like is I never want my housing payment to be more than 1/5 of my take-home pay. Now you'll hear way different things about this. Dave Ramsey says something like, don't let it be more than 1/4 of your take-home pay. The general rule of thumb that's kind of been touted around the personal finance community and in general knowledge for some reason has been don't spend more than 1/3 of your gross pay or your pre-tax pay every month. But I find that just doesn't leave enough room for saving for the future, retirement, emergencies, and having that extra disposable income every month that allows you to keep up and save and live a prosperous kind of life. So I never like to have my mortgage be more than 1/5 of my take-home pay. You can use that rule of thumb if you like. It's worked extremely well for me over the last few years. Something to think about. But you do need to know that you'll be paying what's called PMI or mortgage insurance if you put less than 20% down. Now you can eliminate that down the road. And in my mind, I'd rather have more cash sitting around that I can invest and do things with and have that psychologically than put it all into real estate, especially with the nature of how prices can go up and down. I remember 2008, 2009, you might too. So something to think about there. The last thing I want to mention is when you put less down into a house, less down for your down payment, you're going to start out with less equity or less ownership in the home that you're purchasing. So you potentially put yourself in a bit more risk there than if you're putting 20% down. Because what can happen is the value of the home could decline and you might find yourself underwater on the house. And then, say, if you lose your job and you're underwater on the house, underwater just means you owe more on the home than it's worth than you could reasonably sell it for on the open market. That can be a tough position to be in general, property prices seem to, we're back to where they were and rising still, and it's really different from area to area. So I've never suggest buying a home unless you really research the area you're moving to, understand the market, and like really seriously understand the market. Like, are there successful businesses in the area? What's the median income of the area you're moving to? Is it a stable economy that you're moving into? That really matters, because if, say, this happens all the time where I'm from in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, if the mine closes down and it's the singular employer in an area, then there's like a microeconomic collapse that happens in that geographical area, and home prices can plummet and people lose their jobs, and it's like, right, it's just a small scale economic collapse, and these things can really get you. So this is why I like to put 3 to 5% down on a house. I like having cash on hand so that I can invest in other things, so that we have the flexibility of life that I desire, so we have that psychological that psychological room of having cash on hand and not having it all in a house. And it's worked really well for us so far. I've tried to give you the things to think about here, but I also think it's really fantastic. A lot of people think they can't buy homes, and when I talk to my students who are, in their mid-20s, getting into their 30s, and they think they're never going to be able to buy a home, I always kind of mention this. It's like, a lot of people don't know you can put 3 to 5% down on a house, still get a conventional 30-year mortgage. Yeah, you have to pay the mortgage insurance, but it's maybe, somewhere between $50 and $100 a month, and eventually you can eliminate it once you have 20% equity in the house. So it's kind of just like, if it's really a dream for you, if it's something you really want to do, and if you want to get into the property ladder and build wealth, it's something worth thinking about. I'm not a licensed real estate agent or anything like that, but this is my 2 cents. It's worked really well for us, and something to think about for you. Have a good one. If you like the things I'm talking about, feel free to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment, ask a question. I'm here to help you out. Have a good one.